What's up, everybody? I'm Mckenty. This is my second channel, and this is your home for my Twitch highlights and my podcast. So if you like this and you want to see more of that and you want to join the live streams, there's a link to that in the description of this video. And with that out of the way, let's do our Deathcore tier list. As a reminder, the criteria for my tier lists are threefold. Number one is how commercially successful is this artist, because if they sold millions and millions of albums and have millions of streams, I think that's got to count for something. Number two is how influential they are, because there's sort of the flip side of that. Sometimes there are artists that maybe didn't have a ton of commercial success, but they were super influential, and I think, should value that. And number three, the third least important factor, but still a factor, is whether I like them or not. So I will start. Suicide Silence. I mean, we all know where this one's going to go, right? The only rightful place for Suicide Silence is S tier. I think we can all agree on that. Very commercially successful as far as the genre goes. I think they hit like Billboard top 15 or something like that at one point or another with the Black Crown. So very successful by the standards of the genre. Super influential. I made a whole video about how great Suicide Silence is. I think all that stuff really holds up today still. And do I like them? No, I don't like Suicide Silence. I love Suicide Silence. I'll just play one song really quick for anybody who is not on the Suicide Silence program. Still so good.
Hey you. I want to tell you a little secret. A secret about a hidden gem that some people call the greatest mobile game of all time, Raid Shadow Legends, the sponsor of today's video. You can use my links below to download Raid for yourself to your mobile phone or PC. And the newest boss released in Raid is the biggest and craziest yet. This thing is a Hydra with 6 different heads, each of which is a complete boss battle in its own. One of them is called the Head of Torment. This head kind of looks and sounds like a death metal album, which is kind of cool, but also why it's so terrifying. Another one is the Head of Wrath. This head gets angry, very angry. What I personally really like about the game is how deep the customization is. Each character has multiple slots or different artifacts. Raid is releasing a brand new Faction Wars crypt for one of the coolest factions, the Shadowkin. And if you use my link in the description or scan my QR code, you will get a free starter pack worth almost $30. We're talking about, first of all, a free champion named Tyrell, 200,000 silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon awesome champions as soon as you get in game. And all of this treasure will be waiting for you right here. Once you're in, you can find me in game under the name PRMBA. If you want to check it out, just use the links in the description of this video, and I'll see you in the game.
Have you ever heard the Suicide Silence EP? I talked about this in the video, so I won't go on too long, but this EP is so fucking heavy. It is so bizarre to me that anybody ever thought that they weren't like real metal or whatever, which obviously is because, you know, Mitch was good looking and had short hair and, you know, girls liked him and stuff. This shit is heavy as fuck, and I have no idea how anybody could ever question that. How did anybody ever, like, question the validity of this as, like, metal? Heavy as shit. We all knew where Suicide Silence would end up, right? I mean, if I placed them anywhere other than S tier, I would just have to go throw myself on a sword. It is the only option. Where does Chelsea Grin belong on the Deathcore tier list? Why don't we listen to a couple Chelsea Grin songs, because they've been around for quite a while now. They've changed a bit over the years. Let's listen to a couple songs. Recreant was the song, I think, that put them on the map back in the MySpace days, right? Another one of these cringy, like, tortured girl videos. Not into that, but what a riff. Super catchy song. They got a lot more, I don't know, technical, I guess. A little bit more genty in their later years, but I think still good. Jason Richardson on guitar, yes. One of the absolute best current metal guitarists. The dude is fucking nuts. So, where does Chelsea Grin belong? They did pretty well for themselves. Nothing, on the level of Suicide Silence, but they did surprisingly well. Influential, yeah, I would say that they were one of the bands that got a lot of kids into MySpace deathcore. Jason, in particular, is very influential as a guitarist. And do I like him? I do. So I think I'm going to put Chelsea Grin on the A tier. I'm going to be excited to get into some of the real deep cuts, the shit tier, filthy MySpace bands, because that's actually my favorite stuff. Grimy, underground, shitty MySpace deathcore is the best stuff. So I'm going to be excited to get into that. Let's start with one of those bands right now. How many people remember Jerome? God damn it, this band is good. This band was so fucking good. And they were 15. Look how fucking nerdy these little kids are. Look at this kid. He looks like fucking Rosie O'Donnell. He's probably 12. And listen how fucking good this is. Yes, the drummer went on to be an Oceano. These bands are so obscure that it's actually really hard to even just find their fucking logo. Look at that. There's two examples of their logo on the entire internet. That's how obscure they are. And where do they belong? Well, I would say that they're one of, many examples of these great forgotten MySpace deathcore bands. It's impossible to find anything about them, any of their music anywhere. Zero commercial success. Were they influential? I don't know. I mean, maybe they're basically a local band. I love them, but I think they're in that sweet spot to me of C-tier bands. Like I've said before, I think the C-tier bands are the best in a lot of ways. You have low expectations for them. Nobody thinks Jerome is going to be the next big thing. Nobody thinks that they're going to reinvent music or anything like that. They give you what you want. I like when bands are exactly what you want them to be. If you find some random kind of beat down band from some shitty place like Modesto, and you're like, God, I hope this sounds like fucking ignorant ass beat down from Modesto, and you press play and it does. I just like it when bands do exactly what you expect them to do in a good way. And I feel like that's Jerome in a nutshell. They're just the epitome of filthy, raw MySpace deathcore. And although I put them in the C tier, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing to me. The C tier is the real S tier in a lot of ways. Let's talk about some other bigger bands. Get those out of the way since I know people are asking about them. Where do we think Whitechapel belongs? In terms of commercial success, they did do very well. What is it? The Exile one, what's called This Is Exile. That album went to number 14 on Billboard, which is insane. I mean, I never thought I would see a deathcore band go that high on Billboard. So you got to give them a lot of credit for that. But it gets a little bit trickier because are they influential? I don't really know that Whitechapel is influential per se. You don't hear people say, our influences are Whitechapel, because I don't know, they weren't that original. I think they executed very, very well. I don't think they were super original. I do like them. I think they're a good band. I don't think they are as good as Suicide Silence. I think they executed really well, but they don't have the kind of vision that Suicide Silence did. However, as far as deathcore goes, I think you got to put them on the S tier. Whitechapel, Suicide Silence, on the same level, I would say. What do you all think? Phil is that's true. Phil's vocals, yeah. Phil really pushed extreme vocals forward in his own way, and that's true. A lot of the sort of newer bands, the Alex Terrible type of vocalists and stuff, I think are influenced by Phil. That's true. Thy Art Is Murder. That's another big nerd band. Where would we put Thy Art Is Murder? Let's listen to them for a minute. For anybody who maybe has not heard them, unfortunately, they sure had some bad lyrics back in the day. I'm not even going to say the name of the song because it just sucks. The song is not good. Incel core. I see why nerds like it though, because it's got some wheedly-wheedlies. And that's all you need to do to make nerds happy. It's not good, but that's why you love it. It's true. God, why did we enjoy these lyrics in high school? Nobody thought anything of it at the time. I remember all this stuff coming out, and it was just a different time. Like, nobody thought it was at all weird that they had a song called this, or just, there are so many of these songs where the lyrics, basically were like, you broke my heart, you fucking whore, now I'm gonna kill you. That was like 80% of deathcore lyrics, and nobody thought anything about it. All these shirts with these edgy slogans about, whores and sluts and killing women and stuff. And I don't remember anybody even bringing it up as like something to note at all. It's weird, I mean, this is 2008 or whenever this came out, and it's just a different time. The Artist Murder, to me, just kind of went tech death. I remember people liked this song a lot, right? It's well done. It's just a little too clean for me. I mean, I've been listening to death metal for 30 years, so I'm admittedly kind of burned out on it, but I need something more than just sort of competent but unremarkable death metal to get me excited. So I would put The Artist Murder B tier. They do what they do very well. No question about that. They have done well for themselves, given their genre and that they're from Australia and stuff. That always makes things a little more complicated. So I think they've done well for themselves. I wouldn't ever really choose to listen to them, but, I think B tier is fair. What do you think? Job for a Cowboy. Got to talk about Job for a Cowboy. Yes, that's another name that has to be included here. I've talked about them many times. Oh, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that so many people are ranking them as low as C tier or D tier even. I'm surprised. Here's what I think. Entombment of a Machine, I would say, is an S tier song. It was very important. Like, to me, that is the song that really like put deathcore on the map. That was like such a fresh sound at the time, and they were so young and like so good at it. Really brutal and nasty, but it was still like catchy. Kids loved it. Like, it was clear that this was like an exciting new thing. I mean, that was 2005, I think. S tier song, super important, super influential. But like I talked about before, I think they really kind of, to me, went downhill. It seems like they probably know what they're doing, but they just sort of became death metal to me, and they did it well. Like, the bass playing on, what is it, Sun Eater or whatever, some nice bass playing. It's very well done, but just kind of, there's nothing there that's interesting to me. Just became yet another death metal band to me. But still, you got to give them some credit, I think. I'm going to put them on the A tier. Putting them on the same tier as Thy Artist Murder just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, just on the strength of the Doom EP, I think they got to be ranked higher than Thy Artist Murder. That's what I think, and I'm sticking to it. Despised Icon. Okay, let's get the fucking nerd bands out of the way here. I was surprised by this. I had no idea how much nerds liked Despised Icon until recently, because back then, people either hated or ignored them. Despised Icon was not cool. Like, they wore hats, they looked like hardcore guys. They were definitely considered fake and gay in the eyes of metal nerds back in 2007, 2009 or whatever. So imagine my surprise 10 years later when I learned that those same metal nerds now worship this band like they're the fucking second coming of Christ. Let's listen to them for anybody who is not familiar. They did break up, but they got back together at least a while ago. I don't know if they still are. I liked them at the time. I love this slam part. These are actual Despised Icon lyrics. You be a classy looking hoe. Girl, I promise that I'll be gentle and take it slow. Put this thick member in your mouth and start to blow. Is that real? No, that can't be real. They're real? I need to look this up. If they are, I will change my... Oh my God. What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm struggling to find words here because I've been confronted with lyrics that are even worse than I could have possibly imagined by deathcore standards. I had no idea. This is great. Let's listen to that song then. Listen how fucking fake those drums are. Those fucking drums, man. It is unlistenable to me. I'll be honest with you. I want to hate on this band because their fans can be so aggravating. The excessive enthusiasm among their fans who act like They're the fucking second coming of Christ. Makes me want to hate on this band. But the truth is, musically, they're fucking good. They really were. The drums are a little too fake, but this was, 2008 or whatever. It's how things were done back then. Musically, that shit was good. Like Day of Mourning, it's legit. Influence, I think at the time, not so much, but over time, they've gone on to become influential. Do I like them? I actually do. As much as it pains me to rank anything over Jerome, because Jerome are the GOATs, I would put them on the B tier. That's what I would say. Let's get into some deeper cuts. For example, another one of my favorite bands, I've talked about them before, but I'll continue to talk about them. Demolisher, the band from Chicago. This EP is one of my favorite releases of the entire MySpace era. It's finally on Spotify. God, it's so good. Listen to this shit. God, I love this. They were like 15 when they did this. This is fucking bass tone is unreal too. Listen to this bass tone. And then here's the two-step part. But you need to see, look at what little dorks they were. Like literally high school kids. They're like children. Guitars are all out of tune. No shoes in the basement, guys. My mom's gonna get mad. There's a part where they practice their running in place. I think it's here. This is my favorite part. I love that. Never gets old. If the C tier is the actual A tier, that's where they belong, right there with Jerome. As Blood Runs Black. It's another popular band with the nerds these days. Let's listen to As Blood Runs Black. The drip is very real in this video too. The diesel shirt. They look like they should be playing with Throwdown. Diminished scale core. So that's As Blood Runs Black. I'm not big on the At the Gates core kind of sound personally, but I will say they did it very well, especially on that album. They brought kind of a hardcore energy to it that I think makes it a lot more interesting, more energetic than a lot of those other bands that just got kind of turned into like formulaic metal. What do you think? A or B tier? I'm kind of torn. I'm going to go with A tier. That stuff held up pretty well. That's what I think. B would be fine too. I wouldn't argue with, maybe you're right. You guys are right. I was wrong. They're not on the same level as For A Cowboy or as Chelsea Grin. You're right. B tier is the place. Winds of Plague. Well, I love Winds of Plague. I'm obviously biased. They're my friends, and we have their guitarist in the chat tonight. Obviously biased. I've been friends with these guys for a long time. I do love them. And look at how advanced this video was. Listen to how advanced this is. This shit was legitimately really, really, really good. Like, in all seriousness, this is a really fucking good song. Great players, too. Like, this shit is not easy to play. Yes, it sounds like Deathcore Abacabb, exactly. They need to remaster this video in HD. Fun fact, the guitarist in this era of the band, Nick Aish, he has a tax prep firm with his dad, Aish and Aish Associates. I had them do my some 1099s for me a few years ago. I had to, pay some contractors and I needed to file my taxes. So I had Nick Aish and his dad do some of my taxes. So there you go. So I would say, for a while, they were bigger than Suicide Silence at one point. I'm going to put them in the S tier. I'm admittedly biased, but I think creatively, especially if you listen to that shit now, that was so far ahead of the curve creatively from like pretty much every other deathcore band. Like that shit holds up. If that came out now, like there's all these like blackened deathcore bands, like fucking, Lorna Shore and everyone else, all the blackened deathcore stuff now. They were doing that shit over 10 years ago. So put some respect on Winds of Plague's name, god damn it. Put them on the S tier where they belong. Okay, Lorna Shore. Let's talk about Lorna Shore. A band that has been making a little bit of noise recently, for good reason. So this is the song. 4.5 million views in 5 months. For deathcore, that's a lot. Let's hear what everyone's freaking out about. I love the mix on this song. It's so like deliberately over the top. Josh Schroeder is the guy who mixed it. He's brilliant. It's the breakdown at the end that everyone freaks out about. So where do we think Lorna Shore belongs? You know, obviously they're the hype deathcore band of the moment, but where do we think they belong? You know, I hear some people saying A tier. I think it's way too premature to call them A tier. Way too early for that. They've been around for quite a while and really sort of just broke out this year. So I would put them on the C tier as of now. They may end up becoming, you know, a bigger deal. They probably will. I think they do it very well, but I don't think they're doing anything that hasn't been done before. It's well done, but I'd put them on the C tier. That's where I would put them. Knights of the Abyss. This is what I'm talking about. The real obscure shit tier MySpace deathcore. They do sound like a power metal band, which is what I thought they were for the longest time. We'll just listen to this quickly. This is what I'm talking about. This is real deathcore to me. Shit tier MySpace deathcore. This is the good stuff. So where would I put Knights of the Abyss? I put them on the D tier because they kind of sucked, but they were kind of great. And remember, the D tier is the real B tier. The C tier is the real A tier. The B tier is the real F tier. That's the way this works. Make sense? It's all about that obscure MySpace deathcore. That's what's up. How about Abacabb? Let's listen to them for a minute. God, Abacabb, they were so fucking good. God damn it, this fucking album is so good. Here it comes. This is one of my favorite breakdowns in all of deathcore. One of the best. Here it comes. God, I love that song. That's my kind of deathcore. I put that on the D tier as well, but remember, the D tier is really the A tier, and the A tier is really the F tier, because the C tier is the B tier, and the S tier is the S tier. Speaking of shit tier MySpace deathcore, definitely got to talk about Dr. Acula, the epitome of shit tier.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
What a horrible band. Here we go. Absolutely awful. But I'm glad that they exist because we need somebody to go on the F tier that we've actually heard of, right? And really, the F tier is more like the D tier. How about I Declare War? Yeah, I was like this song. I never paid attention to the lyrics. It's probably better that way, but I like this song. Lyrics are apparently as bad as I feared they might be. Oh boy. Okay, we're gonna piece out of those lyrics. Ended up being worse than I thought. Apologies for that. It gets left unread once. I would say I Declare War is E tier. Not as shitty as Dr. Acula, but pretty shitty. E tier is the home for I Declare War, I think. Rose Funeral. There's another good one. We're getting into the deep cuts here. I think it was this one, right? Sledgehammer Facelift. Was that their big song? Yeah, this is it. Phew, that snare. Not a great band, but I appreciate that sound and that vibe. You know, it's just the newer deathcore stuff is just so uptight and serious and not fun. And I miss that kind of vibe and sound, you know? I'll go with E tier. They're pretty shitty, but again, in a great way. Salt the Wound. How about that? We got a couple more I pray for Jarrett editing this. This is going to be so long. You can cut out a lot of this shit. Why can I not find anything by Salt the Wound? Oh, because I'm looking for Sail the Wound. Like a boomer. Oof. Not a great band, but I will say that they had one of the very best t-shirts of all time. My friend Mike Cortada did this. I think he's maybe not so proud of this one. So the front of the shirt, it's like this tube of toothpaste with some hot nurse here with some toothbrushes. Pretty cool, right? But here's the back. Oh. Yeah. You know, it was a different time. That's what we did back then. Like I said earlier, nobody thought anything of this stuff. We did stuff like that and nobody batted an eyelash. I put them on the E tier. Again, E tier is not a bad thing. E tier is a good thing. Imagine your daughter going out with a guy and he's wearing that. Yeah. I think we've gone on long enough. I mean, there's probably 100 more bands we could include on this one, but oh yeah, we got to do Carnifex. You're right. We got to include Carnifex. Suffokate. I'm just going to do this really quick. Really quickly, I just have to talk about how great Suffokate is. This is a really underrated album. This song is so underrated. Legitimately a fucking catchy song. God, this is so good. It is a great mix. Underrated. In hindsight, I'm going to put them B tier. Solid. I thought of them as kind of a generic band back in the day, but listening to them now, they're really fucking good. And we also have to talk about Carnifex. You know, one of the originators, actually, of deathcore, I would say. They need some credit. I never liked them all that much. A little too generic for me, but everyone's doing the blackened deathcore thing, but Carnifex was super early to that. I think you got to give them some credit for that. This tier list is going to be impossible to read. I put them on the A tier. That's what I think. Let's wrap it up for now, because poor Jarrett is going to have a hell of a time editing this one anyway. It's long as fuck already. But anyway, that does it for the deathcore tier list. One of these videos that I've been meaning to make for a while. So here we are. My eyes literally are in pain right now from staring at these logos for so long. Don't chop anything out. This is a threat. That's what Ant says. And whatever Ant says, go.